All right, hey, so how's it going, YouTube? I'm making this video because I'm considering selling my 1996 900RR Honda Fireblade with a 919cc four-cylinder carburetor fed motor. This is kind of improv. I don't really have a script or anything like that, so just kind of a video overview before you get too deep into it. I'm not going to talk about the 900RR's history. There have been so many other people on YouTube that have done a way better job at that, and it actually has a really amazing history. The pedigree of these motorcycles is bar none. You know, it was one of the best bikes in its day, and it absolutely changed the way sport bikes were built and sold, and honestly is really, it's responsible for the type of amazing motorcycles that we have today. And for nearly a decade, it was king. And today in 2023, I still think that these bikes, even though there are very few examples, of them left that haven't been modified for Street Fighter or other applications, but in their stock form, I think that they're phenomenal motorcycles, especially for someone who's maybe a little bit experienced, has a couple of years riding underneath their belt, but not super advanced and, ready to handle, 200 some odd horsepower, which is absolutely ridiculous. But these are phenomenal bikes. So what I'm going to do in this video, for anybody who's interested in purchasing this motorcycle from me, I'm going to talk about the history of this bike specifically since I've owned it, the changes that I've made to it, and then I'll do a cold start. I'll go over the starting procedure. I'll talk about the maintenance that I've done to it and the few modifications that I've done. And then later on in the video, I'll take a short clip of me doing some flybys, just showing that it rolls down the road, it brakes, and it shifts gears as it should. This bike is ready to go right now. I've had it for about 3 years, I do believe, maybe a little bit longer than that. It's 2023, and I think I purchased it in like 2018 or 2019. So I guess I've had it for almost 5 years. So anyways, I'm going to turn the camera around now, and I'm going to start slowly walking around and just explaining what I know about the bike, the things that I've changed to it. I haven't made any modifications that could not be changed back to its original form. So if there's some buyer out there that wants to make this completely stock, how it came from the factory, and maybe shoot for that $10,000 plus auction price, this would be a great example to restore completely stock and maybe get that kind of money out of it. I've done some small modifications, but for the most part this bike is nearly stock, and I'll explain those as I go into the video right now. All right, here she is. I'm in the shade because I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's hot. She's by no means detailed. I haven't actually had the opportunity to detail this bike in a couple of months. I had to move out of I had to move from Louisiana to Arizona, and it's just been storage and moving back and forth. The last time I've taken it down the road in the last month or so, and obviously I'm going to take it down the road for the purpose of this video. But I haven't really been able to spend some time with this bike in a while just because of my living situation, right? So once I complete this walk around, I'll start getting into detail about everything that I know about the bike. So I am the third owner of this bike. It is a 1996 900RR Fireblade, made by Honda. As far as the decals are concerned, when I got this bike, the first owner originally took off all the decals. This bike would have like a red tiger stripe pattern on it. If you look it up, it's actually pretty cool, very 90s. The only original stickering left on the bike is this Fireblade emblem right here, and it's also on this side as well. This bike was originally sold to me in Kansas. This was a Kansas bike. It didn't spend any time in Kansas outside of a garage or on the road in the summertime. So now it lives here in Arizona with me. The only con on the bike right now, and I just haven't gotten around to fixing it, is it has been downed by one of the previous owners, and I don't know the details of that wreck. The only damage I can find is on this cover right here, and these covers are going for about $40 on eBay. And I just haven't gotten around to picking that cover up and obviously the gasket and replacing it, but that's a super easy fix. Like I said, it's like 30-40 bucks, $30-40 for this OEM replacement, and it doesn't leak terribly bad, but every now and then, as you can see, I have a small bit of oil underneath there. You know, it's nothing that's dangerous, and like I said, I just keep forgetting about it. It's nothing major. That is the only negative thing I have to say about this bike. When I purchased this bike, it had about 14,000 miles on it, almost 15. And if we look at the odometer now, you can see that it's at 19,175. So I've had this bike on the road for probably 2 riding seasons. 1 or 2 riding seasons was spent, you know, fixing it up, because this bike was just in absolutely horrible shape when I found it. I bought it for dirt cheap, because, you know, the tires were shot. The carburetor needed to be rebuilt, and the front ends, fork seals needed to be replaced, new oil, new seals, all that. So I spent a tremendous amount of time just working on this bike and getting it back to its proper form where it should be. And now it is, in my opinion, one of my favorite motorcycles that I've ever ridden on the road. Coming from the factory, this has about 120 horsepower, and wet weight, not considering the rider's weight, I do believe it comes in right around 300, almost 400 pounds. So you've got about a quarter horse per pound on this, depending on how much you weigh. The power curve is extremely linear on this. Even though it's carbureted, I wouldn't be afraid of it. It's a very easy bike to work on. When you take this tank off, you've got a tremendous amount of room. One of the nice features about some of these older bikes that some people don't consider when they're getting into sport bikes is this trunk. This trunk is, you know, quite large when you compare it to some of the other sport bikes. But if you look at it from the back, it still stays in line with the body lines. It's not huge, but if you compare it to modern sport bikes, usually you only have enough room in here for your insurance papers. But when you open this up, I mean, you can actually fit a 6-pack, and I'm not lying. I don't think that was a mistake. So you can fit an entire 6-pack right here, if that's the kind of thing you like to do. Okay, modifications I've made. I'll start from the front, and I'll work my way down the bike. So some purists might not like this, but it did modify the fender. All right, so if you want to take it back to its normal stock form, you would have to purchase a fender, but they have ABS replacements all over eBay, and those are usually pretty cheap. I modified the fender because the fender originally came down to here, and it just gave me like Hayabusa vibes, and I just didn't really care for it that much. Obviously, I put some tint across the lights. This is the Fox Eye version, as they call it, but obviously that'll just peel right off if you don't like that. I like the iridescent look of it. The previous owner, I believe either the first or the second, put these flush mounted turn signals, and they do work. Right, these are still the stock mirrors. I replaced the clutch and the front brake lever with a CNC anodized aluminum, and then I went ahead and I replaced all the fairing bolts with anodized aluminum, because when this bike first came to me, it was all black with the exception of the tail, and I just felt like it was really boring. So I wanted to do a few things to kind of make it pop. I had no experience with vinyl whatsoever, but I just went ahead and tried it. So this white, the blue, the gold, the stickers, all this stuff could peel right off, and you know, you could bring it back to its original form if you could find those decals, or you could just get new plastics for it. I think last time I looked at eBay, they were probably around $300 to $400 for complete plastic replacement. That's not something that I really wanted to do. I also replaced the foot pegs with anodized aluminum foot pegs that are red, just to kind of give it some more accent pops. I went with the Honda, you know, 90s logo. I thought it's really cool, red, white, and blue, very American. You know, just a few other nice little touches in my opinion. Obviously, you know, I don't know if everybody will agree with me, but I like the Honda sticker down here. I put the Isle of Man symbol on there, the RR, you know, and then just put some blue in there to really kind of make it match with the logo. Other modifications that I've made, I put a gear indicator on here, and just made some trim paint. I went ahead and I installed stainless lines on the front. I did not install stainless lines on the rear because I like my rear brakes to be a little bit softer. This does have a Yoshimura exhaust. This is a very popular modification to do back in the day. And that is an authentic Yoshimura exhaust from the mid 90s, early 2000s. So that's probably one of the coolest things about this bike. I don't believe that the headers have been swapped out, but you know, that is from the headers to the tip, real Yoshimura exhaust. So that's really cool. Still rocking the 16-inch front wheel on this bike. That was one of the things that came from the factory. I don't think they went up to a 17-inch wheel until I think maybe 98 or 2000. Now that might scare some buyers, but just know that there are still some options that are really great for tires in the 16-inch wheel. Right now I have Bridgestone's, what's the model of this? These are the Battle Axe. If you've ever seen Bridgestone's commercials with their motorcycles where they have the guy going left and right, really hard lean angles in rain, he's using Bridgestone Battle Axes. I think they're a great tire. Now, one of the things that's really popular to do with these bikes, and it's very easy to do, if you do a little bit of research, there are a lot of 17-inch wheels. I believe the Honda F4i and a few other models bolt up directly to this bike. You don't have to change out the shocks, right? You're just getting a different wheel. And even some of the Honda bikes like the F4i and I forget what the other ones are, you can swap the brake discs right over. But get on the forums and they'll have all that information for you there. You can get that stuff on eBay. I did modify these stock fenders because out of abundance of caution, I wanted to have crash bars on the side. I felt that having crash bars on the side in the event of a tip could potentially save my OEM fairings. There is one crack here. This is again from the previous owner. I don't know how it happened, but obviously this bike at some point did go down. And if there was any major damage, they did a really good job of hiding it. I have had these fenders completely blown off. I've had the carburetors completely off. You know, I've had this bike serviced from top to bottom. I do have receipts for that. It was done in Kansas. This is a new chain, smaller sprocket. I'd have to get the digits on that exactly, but that just makes it accelerate a little bit faster. Top end is not really affected too much by that. I'm probably 5-10 miles, but when with the smaller sprocket, you know, your acceleration is so much faster. So what else have I done? Obviously these seats, these are not stock seats, but you can kind of see this if I pop this open here. If I open up this trunk, this is just leather. Somebody on, you know, eBay was selling these custom fit for this bike, right? So if you peel these staples off and peel this leather off, the stock leather from 1996 is still underneath there. The seats are actually really comfortable and that leather is in good condition. I put these on here just to simply make the theme that I was going for match a little bit better, make it pop a little bit more, because again, this bike was primarily all black and I wasn't a fan of that. And also to protect the leather was underneath it. If my memory serves me correctly, which sometimes it does, I do think that there's one tear underneath this, very small, less than 1 inch wide on the stock seat, but that's to be expected because whenever you want to get into the battery compartment, or if you're going to take the tank off, you have to pull this back and there's a bolt down there, right? So that's a pretty significant bend that you have to do, but that's the way it's designed. It is what it is. So you've got one bolt here, one bolt on each side, for a total of 3. Other than that, I haven't messed with the brake rotors. It's been smooth braking. I haven't had any transmission issues. I haven't had any issues at all once I got the bike back and serviced it properly and got it ready for the road, right? So it's a new chain, new sprockets, right? I got upgraded steel braided lines in the front, new tires. I had the forks serviced by a motorcycle shop because I wasn't feeling confident about doing that myself. I'm a do-it-yourself kind of guy, but you know, taking the whole front end off the bike and taking the forks out of off the bike and, you know, replacing the oil and the seals just seemed pretty complicated. Things that will come with this bike if the buyer wants it. I have front and rear stands. They're not extremely high quality, but I've never had any issues with them not picking up the bike or the bike falling off. I've got a helmet, I've got jacket, I've got pants and boots. I also have HJC intercom in the helmet, in my HJC helmet. That's pretty neat. It can also link in with other models of intercom systems that are sold, right? And then one of the neat things I didn't talk about already is, I don't know if you can see here, I gotta get pretty close and I'll light this up so you can see it, but one of the previous owners took the original turn signals, because the original turn signals I do believe were mounted, well, they're somewhere in this area. I don't remember exactly where they're mounted, but they took the original turn signals and they put them in here, and it's pretty cool because it gives the bike a very, very sleek look. I did want to get like a cowl cover, and I wanted to remove the rear pegs because I never ride with a passenger, and I thought that would give the bike a really, really cool, like bumblebee kind of wasp stinger look. But the reason why I haven't done that is because this original Yoshimura exhaust uses the passenger peg as a mounting point on the right hand side of the bike. So I haven't found a solution for that, but that's again just my opinion on how to make the bike a little bit more sleek, but still also, you know, remaining true to its age. You know, right here we've got the VIN plate. I'll go ahead and zoom in on that so you guys can run the VIN if you want. We got a JH2SC3300TM002171. All right. Japan Honda Motor Company. All right. This is official. It's made at the last month of 1995. So this is one of the very first 1996 model years. Right. Super fun bike. Like I said, about 120 brake horsepower. It's only got 19,000 miles on it. Anything I have major services that should be done in the near future, I think around 19,000 miles. I'd have to check the book exactly, but I think around the time frame right now, the Honda calls for like a valve adjustment. However, on the forums that I've read, most people that have taken their bikes in to get their valve adjustments around that time frame haven't had any need to adjust their valves. But anyways, let's go ahead and I'll go over the starting procedure. So down here, this bike is not currently equipped with a fuel pump. It's gravity fed. So I have a petcock here, right? And if you're wondering what this cable is, this is an airbag vest. Again, any potential buyer or anybody that takes it, if they want the airbag vest, they can have it. So this, you clip this onto a vest, and if you're ever ejected off of the motorcycle, this vest explodes basically like an airbag would, and cushions you in the event of a crash. I think that's really important, and I think it's an awesome safety feature. So, but if you don't want this, if you don't have an airbag vest, or you don't want the airbag vest that obviously I'll give to the new rider, then you can just take this right off. It's just looped around the frame here, no big deal. Obviously I have the battery hooked up so that I can put it on a maintainer when I'm not riding it. I do have a aftermarket, or it's possibly an OEM rear spring, not the shock, but the rear spring. I got that from the previous owner when I purchased it. And I also have either OEM or a replacement OEM or aftermarket front fork springs, and I forgot to give that to the motorcycle shop whenever I had the front forks serviced. I had those front forks serviced, I want to say in 2021, so not that long ago. Obviously not that many miles have been put on the bike. I probably put about 1,000 miles on this per riding season in Kansas, because the riding season up there in the Midwest is pretty short. And obviously, being in the Army, I was always busy in the summertime, so it was always hard for me to get on the bike and really put down some miles. But I've done a really good job, I think, of taking care of this bike. So starting procedure. I always forget this, so I had to put a little sticker on here. All right, we've got our fuel. So right is on. Down in this down position right now is off, and then to the left is your reserve, right? So fuel mileage that I've seen riding spiritedly, I'll call it, I've seen about 120 and upwards to about 150 miles per tank before I've ever had to turn on the reserve. Now, how many miles will I get when I turn the reserve tank on? I do not know. I've never ran this bike empty. I never was stranded on the side of the road, fortunately. And then you can see right here on the trip meter, it has 70 miles. If you just turn this knob right here, whenever you fill up, that'll go to 0. And that's how I keep track of the gas, because there's no gas indicator on this cluster. These are all analog, you know, original 1996 analog, you know, gauges. Nothing's been modified there. And I'll go ahead and start the bike up now, do a cold start. I'll talk about, you know, what you should know, get into an old bike like this. And then I'll leave it running until the radiator kicks on, just so you can see that, hey, when it starts to warm up, the radiator and the fans kick on the way they should. And then I'll cut the video there, and I'll, you know, put on some gear, and I will just go up and down my street, and I'll try and shift through some gears and just show you that, hey, it actually does work the way it's supposed to. If you're wondering why I'm considering selling this, it's simply just because I've enjoyed this bike a lot. However, I don't get to enjoy it enough, and I'm getting a little bit older now, and I think I want to get into like the classic car scene. It's a little bit safer, and my mortality is catching up with me. But this is a great bike, and I want it to go to somebody who's going to appreciate it. And like I said in the beginning of the video, if you don't know anything about the Honda 900RR Fireblade history or pedigree, just do a quick YouTube search. This bike has some of the coolest pedigree and history of when it comes to sport bikes, in my personal opinion. And there have been a lot of videos done about these bikes and how great they are. I've never met anybody that's known anything about these bikes that's had anything bad to say about them. Everybody that has been on these bikes, ridden them, just absolutely falls in love with them. They're darlings, you know. They're not slow, but they're also not 200 brake horsepower, you know, and you don't necessarily need all these rider aids to ride it. That's one of the exciting things about this bike, is that there is no ABS, there is no gyro, there is no throttle position sensor. This is as analog as it gets. You know, think about this kind of like a Dodge Viper, right? You know, yeah, they can be really dangerous in the wrong hands, but if you know a little bit about riding, then you're going to be okay. And obviously this is not a beginner bike, but I wouldn't say that you need to necessarily be an expert to ride this bike. It's got enough power to scare you, but it's not so much power that you can't crack the throttle wide open. You absolutely can, and it is a blast, but you do run out of gears pretty fast. So anyways, we've got your petcock here. Again, I don't know, because some of these bikes, they did come with a fuel pump. I don't know if that was removed by a previous owner, or given that this was the first model year of the 1996, it didn't come with one. But if you so wanted to make that upgrade, you can. I've had this bike wide open throttle before, you know, on the highway, obviously merging safely and riding on the highway like you should, you know, not speeding. And I've never had any fuel flow issues. So for that reason, I haven't gone through the headache of trying to install a fuel pump. The gravity fed system works great. You know, I've got a fuel filter in there prior to going into the carburetors, just to save me from any kind of unnecessary carburetor rebuilds. You know, sometimes you go to a shitty gas station and their gas isn't as clean as it should be. So we've got our petcock here, and then we have our idle adjustment here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn this to the on position. The only kind of, I say maybe ghetto thing, excuse my words or French, about this is the choke, and I'll get a better angle of it here. When the bike is running, the choke doesn't stay in the on position like it does now. It'll slowly close. So what I've done to mediate that, just because I haven't had the chance to get back into the carburetors, is only for the warm-up, right? I'll just put this clip in here, and that just stops the choke from sliding down. And again, you don't have to go through the process of warming up the bike every single time you start it up. It's just that this bike has been sitting for probably a week or two, and it hasn't been ridden or ran, right? So once the bike is warmed up, you know, you warm it up the first time in the morning or in the afternoon or whatever, you don't have to use the choke after that. You know, once the bike's got some residual heat in it, you can just turn it on, you know, turn the fuel on, crank it over, and she's good to go. But again, this is a cold start. She hasn't ran in a few weeks. So Everything's real small. There's no heat in the engine, so I will have to use the choke for just a few minutes, maybe like 2 minutes total. And I'll show you, I will explain how I know when the bike is ready to have the choke removed and when she's ready to hit the road. So fuel on, key in, right? We pull the choke out, and again, you might be able to fix this once you get into the carburetors if you choose to. You know, I think that the set screw probably just needs to be tightened up. But choke on, you know, let's get it out of the, oh, it's on sorry about that, I locked the forks. This is the original key too. All right, so gear indicator, forks are now unlocked, right? We're gonna go ahead and crank her over. And that's a testament to these batteries. I have not had the bike on a battery tender for probably 2 or 3 months now. So batteries are still going strong. Stator still works. Like I said, the only con is that cover right there. It needs to be replaced, and it's $30–40 on eBay. So I'm just gonna go ahead and let this warm up a little bit. Once I warm it up, I'll go ahead and do some revs, do some shifting, drive it down the road. Right now I can show you that, you know, all the signals and everything work, right? So let's walk around to the front. All right, we've got headlights, okay. That light, I'm not sure what that light's supposed to be. It's always on. Maybe a GP Moto thing or something, I don't know. Like I said, this bike's from '96, but I do think it's pretty neat. So we'll go ahead and turn the high beams on. Let's see, where did they go? There they are, high beams. See if we can tell if they're any brighter. All right. Low beams, high beams, low beams. All right, let's test the signals. Go left signal. We got our idiot indicators down there. We got a left turn signal on the front end. And we've got a left turn signal on the back end. And you know, when you're in a car, this is what you'll see. So very sleek look, but you can still see the indicator. I haven't had any issues with law enforcement so far, and I've put 3,000 or 4,000 miles on this bike. So cancel that indicator, and let's go ahead and turn on the right turn indicator. Again, dummy light is working. We've got our right turn indicator in the front. And our right turn indicator in the rear. And like I said, if you're in a car, even if you're up here, right, and if you're in an SUV, you're still gonna see that indicator, which is, I think, is the reason why I haven't had any issues with law enforcement, because those bulbs are very large. They are the stock bulbs from 1996. They're just tucked inside of the fairing. I think that's a really cool thing that the previous owner did. I like it a lot. Let's cancel that. Test on the horn. Yep, the horn works. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give this a few minutes to warm up. Like I said, you don't need to wait a long time. Maybe a minute or two when it's hot. If it's cold, it might take 3 or 4. What's going to happen when this bike warms up is you're going to see the RPM gauge go up a little bit. You're going to hear it start to idle up a little bit, and then at that point you can just kill the choke, and you're good to start riding. So I'm going to pause the video here, go put on my riding boots, and you know, hand my phone over to my son, and hopefully he can get me in frame, just going down the road, you know, shifting through a few gears, just so you can see that, hey, I'm not selling you a piece of junk. Yep, so I'll be right back. All right, so she's been warming up for, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and she's ready to go. She's not quite to operating temperature just yet, but that's okay. Once I go up and down the street, shift a few gears a few times, she'll be at operating temperature, and I'll be able to stick the you know, the camera down in there so you can see that, hey, the fans come on and it doesn't actually overheat or anything crazy. One thing I forgot to point out when I was going to you now, this is a very minor change, but I think it's a quality of life. These little nuts right here, they're actually the license plates lights, and I routed those in. I know the wire's kind of hanging down, it is what it is, but I routed those in because the original license plate lights just weren't doing the thing the way I want them to, and this is a really sleek design. I'll go ahead and give you a few baby revs. One of the things I absolutely love about this bike, and I hope that the phone that I'm using captures the audio in a way that you know allows you to hear what I'm talking about, because I don't know if the tone is going to be the same. But to me, whenever I listen to this bike, at least at idle and for maybe the first 1,000 revs or so, it's kind of got that like R1, like kind of like American, like low kind of lope to it. So I'll stop talking and I'll get the camera in there. Well, let's give her a few revs. Alright, let's go ahead and show you the RPMs. Again, I don't want to rev it too high because she's not quite up to operating temperature. And obviously, on this residential street, I'm not going to go too fast, right? I won't be breaking any laws, just so anybody's, everybody's clear, anybody that watches this video. I don't have a disclaimer, but I will not be speeding on this road. I will be driving the speed limit, especially since I have cold tires. All right, so judge me for my attire. Generally, when I go riding, from head to toe, I got the full Power Man outfit. The helmet, the gloves, the jacket, the pants, and the riding boots. But just for the purpose of this video, going up and down the road for literally maybe 2 minutes on a residential street that's really quiet, I'm gonna take the risk just because it's hot outside and shift the gears a couple times, and hopefully I don't wreck. Anyways, I'm gonna hand the phone over to my son now, and I'm just gonna take the bike up and down the road. That way you guys can see that, hey, the bike does the thing. It stops, it goes, and shifts gears. Here you go, buddy. Don't press the stop button, all right? Just keep it recording, all right? And keep me in frame. Thank you so much for your help, my man. Come stand over here in front of this truck. Yep. Good? You got me in frame? Those lights. So for anybody that cares, I never knew why this was on any motorcycles, but I'm going to go ahead and I'll put the kickstand down. You'll see that stand indicator come on. All right, so kickstand down. All right, go ahead, point at the lights. All right, so you got your side indicator there. That's your idiot light, that you know that the kickstand is down. All right, and then if you try and put it in a gear, boom, she's going to cut off. So Almost every function feature of this bike that I know of that came from the factory back in 1996 still work through. So I'll fire the bike back up, and you know, if the radiator should kick on here in just a second. I'm gonna get it into neutral. All right, so neutral. All right. All right, down, kickstand down. Hey, thanks, little man, for all your help. All right, I appreciate you. Gonna get a fist bump? All right, you can go back inside. I love you, bud. All right, so anybody who's trying to buy this might want to know this, right? So, about to hit normal operating temperature. I'm gonna go ahead and grab it a few more times. She's not moving down the road, so we should see those fans kick on pretty soon. These are the fans. I'm going to go ahead and point the camera at that. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Any moment now. Come on, baby. Just want to show the people that you know how to stay cool. This would be the perfect time to put that SpongeBob meme in there. 1 hour later. That's that water wetter keeping it really cool. Come on now. Thermostat needs to open up. Oh, there they go. Hopefully you can hear that. I know you probably can't see the blades because I wasn't watching. But you know what I'll do is I'll turn the bike off, keep the camera on it, and then you can tell that they work. You hear that? All right, so fans are working. She circulates, she starts up, she goes, she shifts, she stops. All the lights work. This bike particularly, in this condition, you know, I have to, I know what I got. Just kidding. But no, seriously, go ahead, look on the internet, look on Facebook. It's gonna be really, really hard to find a motorcycle, well, not just a motorcycle, but specifically the 900RR, whether it's the original circular 92 to 95 or the 1996 Fox Eye like I have here. It's going to be extremely hard to find another 900RR in this condition. That's why I jumped on it when I saw it. I absolutely fell in love with the way the bike looked. I knew nothing about the pedigree, and I looked into it and I just thought, wow, what a cool bike I got my hands on. So you're not going to find another bike like this in this good of a condition in its original example that it is, right? Less than 20,000 miles, you know, for a bike that's what, 25 years old or something like that. That's insane, right? And then obviously I'm the third owner of this motorcycle. The fellow that I got it from was the second owner. He bought it from a bike buddy of his. This bike was originally bought and sold in Kansas. And again, I've only put maybe 3,000 or 4,000 miles on this bike. Had it for about 4 or 5 riding season. Half of that time was spent getting it road ready. The tires on this are less than 2 years old. All the major services that I did do it through the bike shop were less than 2 years old. So I hope I answered any of your questions, or for anybody that's you know, curious about it. If I share this video with you because you're a prospective buyer and there's any questions that you have that I didn't answer, just let me know. But yeah, she is. All right, thanks YouTube.